Good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of November 10th, 2016 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves during the meeting. Please turn off, put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. Anyone who wishes to be renoticed about a project that is returned for redesign by the Design Review Board must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent meetings. Current DRB agendas are available by visiting our website at www.glendaleca.gov. Please note that all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the DRB decision date. It should be noted that the chairperson may reorder agenda items at his or her discretion. This will be roll call. Mr. Malakian.
Here.
Mr. Tarchan.
Here.
Mr. Benlian.
Here.
The agenda for this meeting was posted on the bulletin board outside City Hall at or before 5 p.m. on November 2nd, 2016. This time we will need to nominate a chairman for the meeting. Do we have any nominations?
I'll make a nomination. I'll nominate Mr. Tarchan.
I'll second that.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, we have 3 items scheduled for tonight. And we're available.
Okay, sounds good. I'm not going to reorder the items. We'll proceed the way they are. Are there any oral communications or anyone that wishing to speak that's on an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll go to the first case, PDR 1617077, 1515 Glenmont Drive. Ms. Adi, if you would like to read the summary and the conditions that the staff has recommended.
All right. Good evening and thank you. The applicant's proposal is to add 922 square feet to the first floor and 1,809 square feet to the second floor of an existing single-family home located at 1515 Glenmont Drive. As shown on the plans, more than 50% of the existing wall and roof area will be demolished. As such, the zoning code would classify the project as new construction. The total square footage of this new house will be 6,368 square feet. Originally developed in 1941, the site is a 33,707 square foot flag lot located at the terminus of Glenmont Drive. The lot is currently developed with a 2-story house, approximately 3,660 square feet in size, with an attached 2-car garage and a detached 2-car garage located to the northwest. These garages will be maintained as part of the project and serve as the required parking for the project. The site is developed with a swimming pool that will also be maintained as part of the proposal. There's an existing shed behind the detached garage, which, along with the barbecue area by the pool, will be demolished. The site sits downslope from Glenmont Drive with an average slope of 32.2%. The existing development sits on a flat pad and no grading will be required as part of the applicant's proposal. The existing features of the site that include the retaining wall, fences, gates, hardscape, and landscaped are proposed to remain in their current condition. In terms of site planning, the house is sited towards the southerly portion of the lot with an L-shaped footprint. Although the project is considered new construction based off the zoning code due to the demolition required, it does not propose any significant alterations to the existing site planning. The first floor addition will infill an existing courtyard area located towards the front of the house, and the existing second floor will be enlarged. The lot's developed with retaining walls along the perimeters that vary in height from 2 feet to approximately 5 feet, and they feature a natural stone material that will be maintained. Staff is recommending a condition that any new railings that would be required by building and safety for life safety purposes match the existing railing detailing currently on the site. As it relates to mass and scale, the neighborhood pattern features 1- and 2-story homes with 2-story homes directly abutting this property to the south. The applicant's proposal is to enlarge the first and second floor of the home. The overall height of the two-story house will be 29 feet, where 35 is the maximum allowable by code. The location of the house on a flag lot that sits at a lower elevation than the adjacent properties helps to alleviate the impact of the home's large size from both the street and neighboring lots. The entry to the house does feature a two-story design. However, the location of the entry does preclude visibility from the street. As noted in the staff recommendation, we are including considerations to redesign this entryway to help minimize the large scale of it. The massing of the home is broken up by using varying roof heights, projecting volumes, balconies, and hipped roof forms. In terms of detailing, the consistent use of materials and colors throughout the project help to reinforce the design concept. The arched double door at the front entry is recessed with a cement surround. The new windows will be brown aluminum with clear glass and recessed in the openings with precast concrete sills and frames. There are 4 arched window openings located at the front elevation that play off the entryway. The existing asphalt driveway is proposed to be repaved with paving stones, and the new house will feature a stucco finish with metal barrel vault roof tiles in a dark brown. And staff is recommending a condition that the stucco finish be identified clearly on the plans, and it should be smooth stucco to be more consistent with the design concept. Staff has received a few phone inquiries about the project when the storage poles went up, and we've received one written comment. I placed the comment in front of you. This is a neighbor that has concerns primarily related to the size of the house as well as views being blocked. Staff recommends approval of the project with conditions and considerations as noted in the report. That concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right. I see that we have a few speakers. Mr. Hakokian, would you like to come up first?
Good evening. Edward Hakokian, 220 South Glendale Street, Suite 210, Glendale 91205. If I may, to express my condolences for loss of Rej Mardian.
Thank you.
To his family, to friends, and to Design Board and the City of Glendale. It's sad to see that empty seat. He was a nice man. Anyway, the staff report is so complete that doesn't leave much for me to say. The only thing that, the few things that I have to mention is that entry roof is 1.5 story high, it's not 2 story high, and it's continuation of the roof coming forward, and behind this there's an open space. May I approach and show you when we walk in the second floor?
Please.
That roof is continuation of this roof coming down. And when we walk inside this corridor, we don't feel that we are in separation with the first floor. We can oversee the entry. I think it's a nice feature for the entry to be a little bit of high ceiling going from here to the second floor level. I believe staff was recommending to have 2 small windows next to this entry door, but behind that we have stairs, and on the right side and the left side we have a closet. So I don't think that's a proper place to place those windows. This house, even though that is big, but it's away from the neighbor downslope. It's far from the starting of the slope, and almost secluded from the other neighbors. And we have 3 letters of support that owner will present to you. They are supporting, they are immediate neighbors and they are supporting this project. Regarding the trash location, we'll use that storage next to the garage for the trash. We have mentioned storage, but that's for the trash and things like that.
So, Mr. Agovin, the trash would be inside the garage?
Not inside the garage, next to the garage. Yeah, come and show you.
I see it.
Yeah.
I see it, thank you.
There was a they mentioned about the stucco to be smooth. Yes, that will be a smooth stucco. Materials are consistent around the building, same materials, same colors, same windows, materials of the windows and fascia, and it's, I believe, kind of uniformity around the building. We have a two-car garage outside that a part of that square footage is counted against the house because we need three-car garage, but we have two-car garage inside the building, then we have two-car garage outside that we need only the third car of it, not the rest of it. That's all I can say. As I said, the staff report is so complete regarding all matters of this project that it doesn't leave much for me to say unless you have any questions.
Do we have questions for their architect?
I just wanted to know, the surroundings around the windows are precast?
Surroundings,
Yeah, are they precast, or is it like, I think the owner is shaking his head.
They look like precast.
Yeah, it looks like.
They are, I think it's called out, it should be called out on that section on the, underneath the rendering at the very top. or on
Oh,
the site
I didn't
plan.
see that. Okay, let me go.
So on your site plan sheet. Should be page 2 of your the
Yeah,
plan.
precast concrete. Right?
yeah.
Sheet A1.
Second sheet.
Yeah, number 6 in the elevation sheet, number A6, number 6 more.
Perfect, thank you. That's all.
Don't have any questions? Okay. I just wanted a little clarification on the storage / trash area. In the depiction, you have a window. In the depiction, you have a window that is next to the garage, which would be for the storage window. So you're indicating that that's going to be your trash area.
Yeah.
So the trash is then going to be moved through the house, then through the garage?
Through the garage, yeah, we come up.
Because of where you have your doors. You have a door here and a door here, so this is your trash is going to go through here and out to the street on trash day?
Yeah, the trash, they will bring it into the corridor and take it out. I was thinking to have a direct door opening from the garage also. Can add that.
That might be a better idea because I don't think you're going to be able to get those trash bins through the 3-foot opening
Can
on
be
those
done
doors.
easy.
Okay. And then, do you think that the lighting that you've depicted is going to be sufficient for a property of this size, the exterior lighting?
I think we were thinking about to have recessed light, to have a vertical light coming down, not to spread the light in the neighborhood. This
From the
is what-
second story?
Yeah, it
overhead?
will come down vertically, all lighting will do. Except we have two lights on two sides of the entry door. The rest, I believe, we can have it in the ceilings of the balconies and wherever we have exposed ceiling,
Okay.
so that light will be
So
direct.
the recessed in the overhang.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, Mr. O'Toole? Okay. Rafi Shahinian, please state your name and, we've stated your name, but please state your address for the record.
Thank you, gentlemen. My address is 1616 Glenmont Drive. just briefly wanted to introduce myself and my family. We're the owners of the property and the home to be developed. My wife Susan, my son Michael, my older daughter is at soccer practice this evening, so she couldn't make it, though she wanted to. As Mr. Hagopian pointed out, we do have letters from 3 of our immediate neighbors in support of the project, and I don't know who I
Please hand them to
Mr. Just wanted to give you those, and I think everything that I was going to say has already been said. I just wanted to thank Ms. Vista and Jay for putting up with us for the last few years, going back and forth. They had a lot of recommendations which we incorporated into the plans. I want to thank Mr. Hagopian for his hard work, Milka in absentia for her hard work, and with that, if you gentlemen have any questions of me, I'll be more than happy to try to assist. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I thought there was a third speaker on here, but it was actually Mr. Hagopian for his other project. So seeing no other speaker cards, is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public portion of the hearing and open it up for deliberation. Would you like to go?
Sure, I can go ahead and
Thank you.
start. I think it's a very simple, nice second-story addition. I like it. I think it's clean, minimal. There's no extra embellishments or anything that kind of makes this a busy architecture. I think it's very nice. I have some suggestions, but overall, I want to go through the list of the conditions and considerations that staff has made. So I will first go over them, and then we'll talk about the 2 items that I think it may help the project much better than what it is now. So the first one, overall, the consistent materials and colors throughout, I guess I'm fine with that. I'm not convinced that what staff is suggesting are arched double doors, a reduction of height and introducing windows will help. So I think I want to, in my condition, I would probably remove that. I don't think it's going to be a detrimental to the design. I think as it's designed right now, it's fine. The new windows will be brown aluminum. I want to come back to the window material. So that's the thing that I want to talk about. As far as the smooth finish stucco with the cement plaster, I think it's going to look amazing. So I think I would go with the smooth finish or even steel trowel finish. Metal railing, simple, I'm fine with that one. Existing asphalt driveway to be paving stones. That's the second item I want to talk about. And then the location of trash, we already talked about that. Condition unnecessary railings required to match existing wrought iron. On that one, to match existing, can you explain that?
So
You
when
mean the outside around the
do,
side?
so the reason why we included this is because when I went out to the site for the story pole inspection, the portion where there's the pool and then there's that landscaped area, I think in like old Google imagery, you can see the railings were there, and I think over time they're no longer there. Now, if building and safety determines that they're required, having them match the detailing that exists for those railings that are currently in place, I think would be more just consistent and
So
appropriate. That was
meaning what we're approving now with the building, so consistent with the
current
building?
meaning the existing perimeter walls, which I think I have photos.
But you're not suggesting the building railings to match, is that what you're saying?
No, I just the
So-
necessary railings around the perimeter that building would deem required for life safety purposes. That more or less was my intent with that, and to
I see.
allow for the consistency. Those railing details are like vertical wrought iron with like a little archway, which
Right.
it just looks like they've come down over time due to deterioration.
So
that
we would,
was my.
I'm so sorry. We would need to have some sort of photographic depiction of
I
that.
think I'm fine with the way it's designed right now. It's simple, very clean. There's no extra ornamental embellishments on the railing. So I think if they're gonna do anything on the outside,
Mhm.
they should all be consistent within what is there I'm not sure if I'm clear.
Whatever
So,
they're
no,
presenting
what-
matches the
I
design.
think I'm okay with having two different types of window railings, that's what I'm trying to say.
I hear
The
what
house
you're,
has its own and the side railing has its own. They can be two different.
I
I just-
with
I-
you on that.
I just think that it's gonna become a lot more complicated if we match the proposed railings to what's there.
Yeah, we never expected that.
Oh, okay,
The house
okay.
railings that are shown on the drawings we're good with.
Okay.
And this is really about the perimeter
Perimeter.
railing where there's
Got it.
some still in place.
Got
I
it.
If we
have
need
a
to add
photo
more.
for
Yeah, and
reference.
so to clarify, the recommendation is not to match the house railing.
Right.
The recommendation is that there are some existing remnant railings, and they want those railings to be matched
Good deal.
for the aesthetic.
Yes.
Can we see a picture?
Yes.
So, as we can move on that while we're looking at pictures. Any new landscaping shall be dropped on, agreed? The, number 3, stucco finish to be identified, and I think it'll be smooth or steel drawn, that's fine. Trash area be identified. Yeah, that's fine. Trash area be identified on the plans, I think we talked about that. Consider reducing the height of the arch entryway. It's a consideration. I'm okay the way it is, but it is a consideration, so we can leave that. Consider landscape, the area occupied by shed to be demolished. So I'm okay with that as well. So the two things that I wanted to talk about, and it's kind of the perspective represents that. So maybe think about considering some sort of a base, or even changing the color of the base of the building, because it just sits, it's like you got paver and the stucco sitting, it's just so, everything is so bare, so dry, and I think there needs to be some base to the building. I think that would really help. The second thing is, it's indicated that you're gonna be using Fleetwood windows. Fleetwood is probably top of the line windows, that it's there, aluminum windows. So I would suggest, instead of going towards ultra contemporary Fleetwood aluminum windows, I would kind of tone it down a bit and possibly go with, the same caliber quality. I'm not saying reduce the quality, but maybe Marvin or Anderson or something that has a little bit more substantial window profile, so that it looks a little bit more to date with the design that is being proposed. I think it's a little bit more contemporary right now. To me, it's just a suggestion. I think it will add more volume to the window framing, and it will work with your cast in stone. That I think is going to work better.
Yeah, if I could just add something, that we're hearing from Building and Safety that the Title 24 requirements are changing, and they're seeing a lot of aluminum windows that they can't approve anymore. So would the board be okay if these became fiberglass, as long as we kept the profiles more traditional?
I'm okay with whatever that's fine, as long as the profile, it could be fiberglass, it could be wood, it could be aluminum, whatever that matters. But I'm just more concerned about the look, and I think the having a little bit more heavier profile that works with the cast and stone around the windows, I think it would work much better in my opinion. And that's it.
So initially, when I started reading the report, and I saw the size, I was kind of surprised to see that it was kind of maximized to the last foot. But when I looked at the plans, I mean, it's well done, it's clean, like Mr. Malikian mentioned. The massing is there, the detail is nice, using high-end materials. So I think it's a good looking building. I'm in support, and I agree with Mr. Malikian on the couple items that he commented on.
Okay. Well, I want to say that I'm very happy to see a design from Mr. Hagopian that doesn't require cut and fill calculations. So this was a good change. I agree with my colleagues. I think that the design is nice, well executed, and the fact that this is not a completely new construction is also, very impressive, because you are preserving a lot of the footprint and converting a courtyard in between the structures into a nice entry area and so forth. I agree with you on the base. I think that some great examples of like neoclassical type buildings with bases that I think would
You
really,
even use precast base or something.
it would
there.
really increase the appearance as people, you know, your guests come down that driveway, would really do that. Will do justice to the building. I hesitate on the size. I think it is large, but I think that the unique site location of this flat lot does allow the size. So I want to get on record of saying that, because there are houses this size that we would not approve in other locations, but because it's tucked away and the upslope neighbors, you know, really don't get impacted by the height, I think it's okay. I would make I wouldn't go through the conditions. You've already done that. The points that I would want to look at is the lighting plan. I think that having recessed in the overhangs is a good idea. However, depending on how much depth you have to those recesses, you might end up shining the light onto the house and creating a much more of a visible impact than you would with other type of lighting. So I think a lighting plan needs to be submitted for staff's review. You know, the northeast elevation, if my colleagues could take a look at that, there just seems to be a lot of unbroken mass there, and I would look for any comments. I understand that that might be a impossibility because of the interior, but it just seems everywhere else is nice and balanced, and here we have this large volume that's just got nothing going for it. And I would invite your comments there. And then that would be it.
I think the masses are set back quite a bit. You know, on a two-line drawing, you see it as massive once you put the perspective there.
Because of the
I don't think it's going to be that detrimental. I think there's enough playing in the project. I think it's,
all right, I wanted to get your
I think
feedback.
just solving the problem is going to create a lot more other issues.
Yeah.
Than
Okay. So, Mrs. Adi, can we get a reading of the conditions? Because there were some conditions that were listed on page 6 under design and detailing, which read more like conditions, as my colleague read them as conditions. And want to make sure that we have them all listed. Staff's final list.
Okay, so just go through the conditions?
Okay,
Starting?
I know. So let's backtrack. On page 6, you had listed certain elements under determination of compatibility, design and detailing, which we read as conditions because they're very specific. The arched double doors at the front entry are recessed and feature, so you're basically dictating that it has to be that.
No, that's a description of what.
Understand.
That's how I read it, because I
But
thought
Mr.
that
Malikan read it
I
as
was
such.
reading it as it's being
Yeah,
addressed
the
as
conditions are
condition.
on the last
And
page.
then that's why I was like, it's repeated again, but that's how I read it, so.
So are you okay with those being there and then the conditions being the ones that are listed?
That's fine, as long as the conditions, as far as the archway, I think, again, it's a consideration, so I'm okay with keeping it consideration, but the
It
comments
could be
there.
omitted.
Mr. Brilliant, are you okay
I'm
with the
okay with that.
consideration? Okay. So we have 1 through 4,
Right.
right? Which we don't need to read because it's on the record. And then we have the lighting per land requirement.
That will be an added condition for
Condition,
submit a
yes.
lighting plan for staff review.
And then consideration 2 will become a condition.
Consideration 2 would become a condition, and which I'm sure that they'd be okay with because I don't think they want an empty space.
And the base.
And the base is a consideration, or is it a condition?
I think the base and the window, I mean, base, it's a consideration, I mean,
Okay.
yeah,
Base is
It's going to improve the project.
I really think it's gonna be good for the project.
If it was visible from the street, I would want it to be a
I
condition.
think if it was
but-
visible from the street, it would be conditioned, but
Yeah.
it's not, it's more of a consideration, but I think it's like highly considered.
And then we had one other one.
Strongly considered.
We had one other one,
Windows.
Mr. Milliken, the windows.
Windows as well,
Consideration.
and I think, Saplat, you, indicated about the new
Title
Title 24 conditions, so put whatever we need to do to make them comply to that, and they don't need to come back to us if they do end up changing that, but,
So the condition can be that as long as the width of the windows is maintained as depicted, that.
actually,
We'll look for a heavier.
Heavier window
Yeah.
is required, and material can be subject to Title 24 requirements.
Okay, and that's a condition now?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, there's support for that.
So, after we finish this, I just want to talk quickly about the windows, really quick, after we finish this. Because we can talk about this as a after all the projects are over, or can we talk about it now? Because there's some questions that are coming up for the block windows, infill block windows, so I want to bring that up before we adjourn today, so.
It's not agendized, but.
It's not agendized, so
So-
that's why I want to talk about after all the projects.
So as in my duties as chair, I'm going to entertain the conversation now, because as it would pertain to providing direction to the applicant, should they run into this issue
And
with Title 24.
we can address this with this, but it's not pertained to this
So it's a
project.
question
I'm
for
just gonna
staff.
talk- So it's a question for staff.
If I could suggest that we do this when it's an agendized item, we're expecting, as our staff, to be briefed from building and safety staff about the new requirements.
So we don't have clarity
we
on the
understand them,
requirements.
and then we can share whatever we learn.
I'm more concerned about the direction that, I'm not talking about the materials and what they're using. I'm more concerned about the direction that I've been getting a lot of calls for people to retrofit their windows that they want to replace with block windows.
Okay.
But I think that's what I want to talk about, because I've been told and samples
So
were given, so.
I think we
that's
have
why
to
I
do
want-
that afterwards,
that's why.
after we're concluded.
So it's not about the material, it's more of the use of block windows in an existing 2x4 typical home.
And then that's
Yeah,
it.
so that wouldn't apply to
Yeah,
this,
we can, after the meeting's adjourned, we can talk about that, share your thoughts, and then
Okay.
we could explore that.
Yeah.
when we
Okay.
agendize the item.
That'd be
later.
great. That'd
Okay,
be great.
all
Thank
right,
you.
so yeah, so now I'll entertain a motion to take further action on this file, but are we clear on the conditions?
Yes, Mayor.
Okay.
So I'll move to approve with considerations and conditions.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Board Member Benlian,
Yes.
Board Member Chartian,
Yes.
Board Member Malikian.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move forward to the next item on the agenda. This is PDR 1620626. Please, no communication as you exit. Thank you. And this would be Regal. And Ms. Regal.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members of the Design Review Board. The next item this evening is case number PDR 1620626. It's a review of proposal to construct a new one-story, 2,500 square foot single-family residence in the R1 zone with a floor area ratio of District 1. And before I go any further, I want to move my plans. Forgot about that.
I was just trying to get it so quickly. Apologize. There you go.
All right, as I said, the new house is in an R1 zone, floor area ratio District 1. A new rear-loaded attached garage is proposed as part of the project. The project is located at 1369 Winchester Avenue on an 8,350 square foot lot. Just to give you some background, the subject site did contain a one-story single-family residence and a detached garage. And additions were proposed and approved last year to the existing house. Instead, however, earlier this year, the house was demolished, or partially demolished. The existing house and detached garage were partially demolished, and so this is where we are today. All right, so the site is 8,350 square feet, rectangular in size. The residence is proposed in the center of the lot. Staff believes that the site planning for the project is appropriate for a number of reasons. The 35-foot setback is maintained, which is pretty prevalent in the neighborhood. And the overall site planning is consistent with the neighborhood, and proposed landscaping is drought tolerant. So those are the three main reasons. While the majority of the homes in the area includes rear detached garages, the proposed project does have a rear attached garage, which is kind of side-loaded. The proposed configuration is appropriate given the fact that the garage really can't be seen from the street, similar to the vast majority of homes in the neighborhood. So we're fine with how that garage is proposed. The board should, however, consider reducing the area of the driveway near the garage in the rear yard to minimize the paving and increase the landscaping in the area. The mass and scale of the proposed residence is appropriate for the site and the surrounding area. While it will be the largest house in the neighborhood, its one-story design and rear garage really successfully integrate it into the neighborhood. This neighborhood is very predominantly one-story. Further, the modest one-story entryway is appropriately scaled, and the side yard setbacks are varied, which provide appropriate relief for the adjacent neighbors. Lastly, as condition, the design and detailing of the residence is generally appropriate. Excuse me. A condition has been added to the approval of the project to simplify the design of the railings, the front door, and the driveway gate, as they are overly ornate and inconsistent really with the simple style of the residence. The windows are proposed to be vinyl, white vinyl. Staff is recommending that window color be changed to a more natural color, as well as the material be changed to a fiberglass to upgrade the quality of the residence. Staff has received 3 letters expressing some concern regarding the project. Those letters are in front of you. Staff recommends approval of the project with the 4 conditions contained in the spec. I conclude there.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions for staff? Okay, I have a couple.
You have a question?
I have a couple.
Okay.
Does the city require demolition permits?
It does.
And was a demolition permit pulled for the demolition that inadvertently or however it took place?
No, what happened was an addition was proposed that was exempt. Staff exempted the proposed addition. They got a permit for that. After they got a permit, in this case, they got a permit for this. After they got a permit, if I'm remembering correctly, the contractor demolished much more than they were supposed to demolish. And it caused the house to be demoed from under 50% to over 50%. And that's when they had to come back, and staff and the applicants had a couple different meetings to come up with the design that you see tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, typically for a house that wasn't pre-demolished, by approving a project, the board is, without saying so, approving the demolition in
Yes.
cases where there is a house on the site.
Yes.
So we're doing this backwards.
Yes.
Without
Sorry.
having to pay the demolition fees. My other question is, if you know, the addition that was approved as an exception the first go-round,
Yep.
what was the net total square feet that the residence would have been? Or roughly, do you know if it would have been the same or larger or smaller than the
It
project we're
was
seeing in front of?
very similar to what you're seeing before you tonight.
The design was
Design.
also very similar.
Yeah,
The
the
design.
design was very similar.
Square footage, we don't remember?
Square footage,
Okay.
design,
Right.
I don't recall about the garage. I wanna say the garage may have been detached at the time.
Okay.
But other than that, the front of the house looked the same. It was just a matter of, too much of the house was demolished.
I understand. And the reason I ask, and I just want to clarify for the folks here and also for the viewing public, is we don't want to get in the habit of having homes, especially anything that has a historical significance, accidentally getting demolished and setting some sort of precedent they can reapply with a new design or design that was not similar to what was previously approved by staff, and somehow, find a path to circumvent the process. And that was my main concern. And with that, let's move forward.
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Sure.
I just saw this. Mr. Keeper,
Yes.
there was one of the emails asking about the southwest side of the proposed building, if there's any windows looking into the property at 1365. Do we know if there's any privacy issues with that?
The only window that we would look at from a privacy concern for our zoning code is that first window in the living room. The house is 1 story, they're proposing like a side wall there. I think the applicant may have more information, but I didn't.
We'll ask the architect.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? All right, I have 2 speaker cards. Mr. Agopia.
Good evening again. Edward Hagopian, 220 South German Street, Suite 210, Glendale 91205. This is what happened. Unfortunately, sometimes with other contractors happens that they are not familiar with the codes in the city of Glendale. In the project that was administratively approved, we showed that less than 50% will be demolished. But the contractor was not familiar with the city of Glendale's rule. He thought maybe some of these plates, woods are old. He could even change those by doing piece by piece. But he thought that's easy or cleaner way to demolish the whole thing and build it again. That is why what happens, and that was hardship for the owners that they have been living in a temporary housing since 2 years ago, and they didn't want this to happen, but it happened because of the contractor, and they lost a lot of money because he had already poured the foundations, and now it has to change because the side setback was 4 feet, now he has to be 6 foot.
Yeah, I just remembered that. That was one thing, because it went from an existing house with an addition to a new house, the setback changed.
And then we had, as far as I remember, and I think we have the photos of the house, that we had windows from the kitchen looking to the west and to the south side, I believe. Yeah, south side to the neighbors. And the other windows that we have there are from bedrooms, so I don't think it's against the code. Regarding the, I want to express my what shall I say, inconvenience that this project has created for the neighbors. And I want them to know that it was not intentionally, it happened, and I'm sorry for that. And the owners want to be sorry, to say that they are sorry for this thing that happened. Regarding the driveway, there is an easement from the power department. If I may approach and show you where that easement is. The easement is from this power pole about 7 foot all the way to the street. So we couldn't build a garage in that location, and if we push 7 foot this way, we will split the backyard and ruin the backyard. That's one reason, but however, having the garage to be on the back of the house, it is an advantage that is not being seen from the street. It's hidden on the back. Now, if the driveway, that turning area, is the one that staff is suggesting to have more landscaping, we can make it as like a grass grid. That will reduce the amount of the concrete in that location. These are the issues that I can think of, and the other thing is that apparently the neighbor was concerned about proximity and closeness of the swimming pool to that side, to the neighbor's side. That was the old design. Now, with the way we designed, the distance of the swimming pool will be, I believe, 3 foot plus the setback, which is 9 foot. So hopefully we don't have any problem with it. One more issue is the wall between this property and the neighbor. This is something that happens often, and people think that the surveyor has done something wrong. We have a surveyor. If the neighbor doesn't trust us, they can hire their own surveyor to come, and we will agree with that, to come and survey and show where that location of that wall is, because that wall is partially in our property. From the rear of the property coming towards the street, gradually it goes partially into their properties, as far as I remember. However, we are ready to cooperate with the neighbor, build a wall. The owners don't hesitate to spend money to build a wall to the satisfaction of the neighbor. And as I said, if they don't agree with our survey, let them to bring their surveys. The surveyors, it's a big liability for the surveyors to not to show the right property line and the encroachment of the walls into the properties. So, however, we are ready to cooperate with them to their satisfaction. That's all I can say.
Okay.
So,
Any questions for?
Yeah, Mr. Broken, quick question now. Talking about the property line wall. So, right now there's some walls, there's some fences, they're broken, and whatever they are, right? Based on the 9-foot dimension that you have on the driveway, are you assuming that that's going to remain, or is there going to be a property line wall that is going to go?
No, we are not going to put a property wall there, because there is already neighbor's property, the wall in their side, so we don't.
But there's just portion of it. There's portions of it that are in. There's some. It's not just one continuous wall that it's going all the way to the back.
I think it is.
If you look at the pictures from March 2015 that you submitted in your packet on the right-hand side, I don't think
You can
it's
kind of
continuous.
see it here. So there's this wall here, and there's wood fence. There's like all kinds of. So essentially, fence wall. If we end up putting the fence wall there, that 9 foot is going to be impacted. So.
I remember that there is some kind of plastic, nylon, or fiberglass wall added to what we usually see here in this survey that maybe is done after we did the survey?
Okay, so based on the site plan that you have, you're just showing a property line, there's no walls or anything there. So essentially, if you end up putting a wall, that wall needs to pull back so that you have the 9-foot clear, so the dimension of the building is gonna change.
I understand that, but if we don't need that, can we just not to build anything there?
So part of the concern, I think part of Mr. McGrath's concerns is especially where you have the existing garage, for example, right, that's been demolished. There doesn't seem to be a wall, a concrete block wall in the pictures that you have submitted to us. And maybe the neighbor has put up a fence, a temporary fence or a permanent or semi-permanent fence, but that you have this issue with the staggered look and potentially encroachment issues that might cut into that 9 feet.
If that's the case, we'll set back like 4 inches more on 9 feet, if that's the case. Then we'll put a fence there.
To
Any
be
other
on the
questions?
safe side. Yeah, I have the question about the privacy
Yes.
and what's in between this, on the other side, I guess the southwest elevation and the neighboring property. One of the emails talks about there's like some privacy issue with the next door property.
As far as I know, all these houses that are in that portion of the city, they have windows on the side. However, only one window of our living space is looking to that side. The other 2 windows are bedrooms.
And do we know the height of the wall at that side?
No, I don't remember, or I don't know what is the height of the wall, but we can build a wall. We will be happy to build a wall to satisfaction of the neighbors.
Okay, Mr. Lopian, if there are no other comments, we'll have the next speaker. Thank you, sir. Carl Mosley.
I am a member of the, or I am on the board of the Northwest Glendale Homeowners Association, and we do have a letter on file. There are 2 things in that I do want to emphasize. One is this property abuts 5 neighbors. 2 of those neighbors at least are very concerned about the hardscaping in the backyard. The other thing is more personal to me. I am very concerned about the driveway being user-friendly. In my neighborhood, garages are being converted to living quarters. My neighbor has 5 cars. I have to call the police a couple times to even get access to my driveway. I'd hate to see something like this happen in this neighborhood. But I understand that driveway as a turning radius will make it difficult, and I think that needs to be addressed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, are there any questions for staff or any other questions for the applicant? Would you like a rebuttal? Okay, Mr. Lopian, rebuttal.
I would like to mention here that those garages that are built at the end of the property, usually people have a difficult time to back up all the way to the street. But in this kind of configuration, the car can back up and turn around and go head on to the street.
That's good.
Now, as I said, if is required, I can make this whole area on the back grass-cleat, so we'll have more landscaping.
Okay, any other questions? Okay.
And
Yes.
the letters.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment portion of the hearing and open it up to deliberation by the board. Mr. Bellion, would you like to go first this time?
Sure. I think this is also a pretty simple project, 1 story. The size is not big. The configuration is okay. I think staff did a wonderful job with these conditions because these are exactly the concerns I have. In addition to that, I kind of agree with the neighbor. I think we need to change that driveway. It's just too much hardscape, so just add more landscape to it, and maybe upgrade the windows and change the color on them. And other than that, I think it's a straightforward project.
Do you have any issues with the four stated conditions that are outlined on page 7?
No, I agree with all of them.
Mr. Rukin?
Thank you. I'm fine with the project. I think the property line fence wall along the driveway is going to be something that needs to be addressed. As far as the turnaround and the landscaping and everything else, it feels long, it feels everything, but everything needs code. I mean, that's how the code is written. You know, they're not going against what the code is stating. I'm not sure if we can add landscaping. I don't consider Grasscrete as landscaping. There's sections there that it outside of the turning area, if there's room that we could kind of add a finger of landscaping, so when people are looking down the driveway, they can see some more landscaping, but there's already trees there that it's placed by the landscape architect. So I'm not sure if there's anything else we can do. There's a lot of there's one plan that I just saw. Yeah. So on the landscape drawing and on the site plan, there's a little bit of a conflict. So I think by adding a little bit more landscaping in the landscape rather than having the gravel, maybe some succulents, some other types of drought tolerant planting that are along the southwest section of that. Also, site plan A1 shows the trash bins set at the recess by the driveway, which I think makes sense, but the landscape architect is showing the trash areas behind the garage and the back. So if that is the case, then I would use that section there to add more landscaping. If we're gonna go with the landscape architect's suggestion. But then there's a conflict between the pool equipment that you were showing and the landscape architect, so there's some conflict there. As far as some of the comments that the neighbors have made, backyard noise, again, backyard noise. I mean, I don't know how much of that we have control over. Turning ratio, it meets the minimum turning radius, what is being provided by Glendale municipal code, so I'm fine with that. As far as windows, I will rely on staff's recommendation. Driveway gate, I agree. I think that definitely, I would like to see what staff is saying. I think it needs to be less simpler than that. Other than that, I think everything else is fine.
Thank you. So I don't want to harp on it, but I want to go back to the issue of the demolition for a second and say that I want to believe that this was a bad contractor. And I want to believe that this was done accidentally, and I hope that's the case. And as that has occurred, Mr. Hagopian has already indicated that that's created a lot of issues with the neighbors, and the neighbors have had to live with a very junky yard for a very long time. And they've also expressed some issues with fences. Now, we're not here to talk about you putting up or requiring you to put fences, but the adage of, good fences make good neighbors, I think is a very important adage to think about. And I would encourage the owner to consider taking Mr. Hagopian's suggestion of designing a fence consistent with of course, the design here to the satisfaction of neighbors. And I would add a condition that any fence improvements that are made are consistent with the house design or consistent with the neighborhood design. I am okay with the conditions, and I would like to stress, like you have, Mr. Malikian, that I do believe that the design, especially the ornate iron work entry, the gate, and there's one other feature here.
The railing.
The railing, exactly, are too ornate for the neighborhood. This is a much more modern take, and it's not befitting the design. I even question, the entry door having such a broad entry door with such an ornate design for a house that is of this size. So, but I would leave those things to staff's discretion with the condition that they be redesigned to be less ornate. And that's where I stand. Unless there's any other comments, I'll entertain a motion after a reading of the conditions.
All right. So the conditions were?
1 through 4, I believe.
Yes. Sorry. All right, condition 1, reduce the area of the landscape near the garage, and correspondingly increase the amount of landscape area. The design of the front door, porch railing, and garage driveway gate are overly ornate and shall be simplified. Windows shall be a more natural color and made of fiberglass instead of vinyl windows. And then consider reducing the amount of paving in the rear yard adjacent to the garage. In addition to that, adding a condition, the design of the fence shall be consistent with the house design.
For the property, for the fence or wall along the driveway.
Or with the neighborhood aesthetic, because it might match more to the neighbor's home versus this home. That's also a possibility. Also, Mr. Malikian indicated that there's a inconsistency in the plans, which I had noticed as well, where you have the trash either in the backyard where the pool's going to go or in the side cutout. That needs to be clarified, and if there's an opportunity to increase landscaping, that is a condition. How do you guys feel about, how do you gentlemen feel about that privacy factor from the front window? Should there be a landscaping of some sort of, additional ficus or something there? Or should that be just a consideration? Just a consideration. And maybe a consideration to address any privacy concerns with landscaping on the only part of the house there that you might be able to squeeze in some trees or bushes.
No ficus.
No ficus, because not a lot of challenge, yes. That is? Yeah, consideration. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve with the conditions and considerations.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Motion was made by Mr. Bentley, seconded by Mr. Malikian. To approve the project, this will be a roll call. Mr. Bentley?
Yes.
Mr. Malikian?
Yes.
Mr. Church?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Okay, we now have PDR 1620159. And this is Ms. Duarte, or? Oh, Ms. Duarte. Oh, there she is. Ms. Duarte, would you like to?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'll say the project location.
I'm sorry, yeah, the project
Location is at 1012 through 1024 East Colorado Street and 311 South Adams Street. The proposal is to allow the construction of a 3-level parking structure on a portion of a 34,177 square foot site for use by the existing on-site banquet facility, commercial and office uses on Colorado Street. The structure will be 25 feet high, in keeping with the height of the residential building to the south. Development requires demolition of the existing 31-space surface parking lot and construction of the 3-level parking structure, which includes 72 spaces of parking. 26 parking spaces are located on the ground floor, 22 on level 1, and 24 parking spaces on level 2. Additionally, 27 valet parking spaces are proposed in the parking structure for a total of 99 spaces. No changes are proposed to the existing commercial uses. The subject site has 2 zones, C3, Height District 1, and R2250, which are commercial service zone, and the medium density residential zone. And they both have frontage on East Colorado Street and South Adams Street. So the request includes changing the entire site to C3-1 zoning and to add a precise plan of design, which is a PPD overlay zone for the parking structure just on that portion of the lot. The project's architectural design will be reviewed by the Design Review Board for their recommendation to Planning Commission and City Council. And pending approval, a lot line adjustment will be made so that the parking structure is on one lot and does not cross property lines. The existing property and background: the subject site is located at the southwest corner of Colorado Street and Adams Street. It currently consists of 3 adjoining lots, as I noted, for a total of 1,077 square feet. It is improved with a 2-story banquet hall and a 1-story retail building. The adjoining lot to the south contains a 2-story multi-dwelling residential building that is set back from the property line to allow for a driveway and uncovered surface parking. A 31-space surface parking lot located along Adams Street provides parking for the businesses. The applicant is required by previous approved conditional use permit and use variance for the banquet hall to provide 100 off-site parking spaces. Currently, the property owner leases parking spaces across the street at the World Gym and uses the adjacent lot west of the banquet hall for parking. World Gym is set to be demolished for the construction of a new 134-room hotel, so therefore the applicant is requesting to build a parking structure in place of the existing parking lot. And the adjacent surface parking lot to the west will also provide 37 parking spaces. In terms of site planning, staff feels that the site plan is appropriate as well. Actually, there were conditions, but not anymore. The proposed parking structure will be basically the same location as the existing parking lot, maintaining the existing sidewalk and driveways. The parking structure will provide parking for the existing commercial uses, a portion of which are currently provided off-site, which I noted across the street at the World Gym. Staff did have a condition to provide the size and the types of plants on the rooftop planter. The applicant has, since the staff report was done, they've submitted a landscape plan, which we just received a copy of and is posted on the board. In terms of mass and scale, staff feels that the parking structure volumes are appropriately balanced in proportions. The structure transitions with the existing commercial buildings as the structure steps up about 10 feet in height from the 1-story commercial building, and it's about 10 feet lower in height than the existing banquet hall building. The massing is broken into separate vertical volumes with horizontal screening or insets. While the project constraints lead to a large, tall wall facing the property to the south, which is the apartment building, The longstanding presence of a taller wall to the west and the buffer provided by the adjoining lot's driveway and surface parking should help to mitigate the mass of the new structure. In terms of design and detailing, staff believes it is appropriate because the design is consistent throughout the facade with simple design. 6, the concrete wall insets provide depth and variation to the facade. Staff does feel that the drawings do not depict adequate lighting on the roof deck and recommend condition to provide the location of the rooftop lighting, as well as cut sheets of the design standards. And staff also recommends a condition to provide decorative paving at the driveway entries. That concludes my staff report. Oh, if you have any questions, we did receive one letter in support, or a comment in support, to alleviate some of this on-street parking, which you received a copy of. I think that's it.
Okay.
Any
I have a
questions?
question.
Before I forget, I'm going to hand these over to Mr. Platt, who can include them into the package for the other projects. I think that those need to be included. I apologize, I did not send that. Mr. Malikian.
Has staff looked at all the backups, clearances for the parking, everything? There's like sections there, the driveway width and stuff like that. Are we okay with that? So I won't even bother talking to them about?
For the most part, yes, those things will be considered by planning commission and city council, all the zoning issues in the PP.
No, what I mean is like
Parking there.
the
Way up.
parking, like
Yeah.
it says 10'6", but then there you have a column behind it, so it's not 10'6" or
Right, they're-
9'7" on one end. So we're okay with that. So the driveway width of 14 feet, and then the other end is 20 feet. 14 is for two-way traffic. It's fine. And,
All those will be considered later.
yeah, but it's going
Right.
to affect
Affect
the
the
design
design.
of the building that we're looking at right now. So if we're okay with it, then I won't bother. Okay.
Any other questions? What is the purpose of having the railing, aluminum louver, industrial louvers?
Design.
As the inset, just to provide screening. You mean on
Is
the
it for
facade?
screening, or is that an entry? Is that an entry gate, or is it on the southeast elevation on Adams Street? They're entering in.
These are gates.
Yeah, these are gates, right?
There are gates.
So
and
why
then-
do we have these massive gates on the parking structure? Is it just a design element, or?
Some are design, I believe.
Yeah, well, the driveway gates are roll-down gates, and then
The louvers are
yeah, it says aluminum.
I'm sorry, it's so small, I barely.
Yeah, the louvers are at the upper openings, and they're vertical louvers, and
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see the,
Yeah,
couldn't see
yeah.
the arrow because it's.
Yeah, it's,
I need
the upper
magnifying
louvers are a
glass.
design element.
The
Steel gate, I got it, okay.
The south elevations, there's a wall behind the louvers, so they're
Gotcha.
trying to match it because
The
it's on
louvers made
property.
sense to me up there, they didn't make sense to me here.
Oh.
I couldn't see where the arrow was pointing, because it was basically hidden there. So, okay, and so the steel gates, now, I have seen the steel gates, and this is a question for staff, being repeated at a lot of the apartment complexes where, they've gone up on Central. Is this a preference of the city to have these roll-up steel gates for parking entrances?
I don't think we have any official preference.
Okay.
We try to avoid them for commercial properties, definitely.
Okay. That's all I have for staff. All right, I only have one speaker card, Mr. Gar Nazarian.
Good evening, Karan Nazarian with Domus Design, 109 Starboard, Glendale, California. As the staff presented the project, this is a kind of voluntary, mandatory upgrade of our parking spaces for the banquet hall, which is one of the most successful businesses in the Glendale. They are losing the least parking spaces across the street. But by this design of the parking structure, I think there is two big improvement for the neighborhood city. First of all, the valet parking, which is provided across the street in the work gym. Always these parked cars, they are going around the streets, turning around to park and bring it back. By this design, all the park, it will be self-contained in the job site. And the second thing, right now we have a surface parking spaces in the south of the property adjacent the apartment building, which there is a buffer zone of the driveway. By this project, we are enclosing we are containing the sound and the noise inside of the structure, and we are providing all the required parking spaces for the successful business. And this parking structure will be used upper levels most only by the valet parkings, because usually it's a very common practice that the banquet halls they park by the valet parking. The surface, the ground level parking, which it's almost the same number of the parking spaces, will be used by the existing retail offices on the building, but the evening time, which that the retail and offices are closed, it will be the banquet hall parking used always by the valet parking. And the railing and the gates, it's at we have two gates there, two access to the parking, and the upper level, it's a design issue. For the design, we have louvers, and on the upper level, we have enough room to put a planter box, which I do have a landscaping plan just to show the shrubs that we are putting there, which is it will be dropped down, kind of ivy to cover the walls. And if you have any other question, I will be more than happy.
A couple of questions. Has a structural engineer looked at this?
Actually, this project, this structure will be built, will be Spankrit, and we send it to the Pacific Clark Company. Yeah, they did review it, and the location of the columns, everything, it's verified.
So you're using
Precast,
the
yeah.
precast
Yes.
planks. Okay. Question that I have is, you have 8710 from property line to the building, but you don't have any seismic separation. Do you have enough cushion there that you're gonna adjust?
Actually, we discussed that with the engineers. We do have enough space. Yes.
Oh, you do, okay.
Yeah, we did take in consideration all that issues.
The floor to floor heights, 10 foot, 9 foot 1. You have 10 foot 3. I can't see.
I have the bigger plans on the board.
I think it's 10 foot 3 floor to floor, and 9 foot 1. Your handicap is on the ground level.
On
so
the
you
ground
only
level
need
only.
8 foot 2 on the ground.
Yes.
And then the rest you only need 7 foot 6.
Yes.
Is it necessary to go that high, or is it something that is
I
designed?
did, because the prefab planks that we are using, they did that depth. Yeah.
And-
But actually, I would like to reduce as much as possible the height, because on the second floor, I don't think that much, I will keep the minimum.
Okay. Another question, has a mechanical engineer looked at this?
No.
I don't think there is enough mechanical exhaust.
It's gonna need ventilation.
You need ventilation for the building, so, I'm just saying so that you may end up putting some equipment on the rooftop.
On the ground floor, we do have
Electrical.
I got the electrical room, it's separate thing. For the ventilation, I do have that two huge gates, which is lowered, it's a ventilation, and from the north side wall, I have opening, and the ramp itself that it goes up, it's open the sides, you know, it's,
Yeah,
but I will you check, of course, the ventilation.
Yeah,
That's not gonna be-
you're too close to the building, and only on the east side, you're gonna need mechanical ventilation there. So I'm just trying to think ahead so that when you end up adding some equipment there, you figure out a way. So, so the other, suggestion that I would have is along the south property line. And I'm not sure on this. That's something that, and I wanna put that on the record so that if he comes back, I think you may have some rating issue, opening the rating. Fire rating, where you have the open rails right on the parapet height. So I think at that level, if he ends up closing that off, I'm okay with that. So that's just something that is right on the property line, so I'm not sure how building
That
safety.
rating that I have, that opening, I have only on the rooftop area. On the lower
Yes.
levels, it's a
It's still,
solid.
yeah, it's still considered as occupancy, so even though it's open, you still have a property line, so that's what I have, so, I think that's it.
Mr. Benoit, any questions? Okay, I'm gonna ask a couple myself. The trash area, the trash and recycling area that you notated on the ground floor, is that replacing the trash area for the entire building, including the banquet hall and the retail spaces?
Yes.
Do you believe it's sufficiently large enough? Obviously you do, that's what you've designed.
Actually, it's working now, and, the parking structure is not adding any load to the trash.
No, not the load, okay. Parking structure is not adding load, okay?
Yeah.
Is it
I
the
wouldn't
same
ask that
size?
question. The question is, excuse me, I apologize. The question is, do you believe that as designed, that the trash area that you have now is sufficient for your banquet hall and for the existing retail uses that you have? Because you have a trash area that you're now putting inside a building next to parking spaces, so that if you have overflow of trash, you're losing parking spots. So that's my question. Do you think it's sufficiently sized for the use?
I think so.
Okay. What lighting did you contemplate for the rooftop?
And I do have the cut sheet attached to the, it's,
Where is it?
if you, can I approach?
Right there.
This one?
No, it's on the plan.
It's on the plan.
So this is
I'm
only
training just a low-level light.
low-level lighting.
Yeah.
The bollard lighting is not gonna be
It's
sufficient
not gonna
lighting, it's gonna be
cover.
blocked by all the cars parked alongside the bollards.
If
So
needed.
we know you're gonna need overhead lighting of some sort. And I think we have a condition in there looking to,
You're both gonna have a security issue that's gonna require lighting. And you're gonna have a blockage issue, like Mr. Platt indicated.
But
So-
one thing to bring to your attention, no public is going upstairs, only valet guys, that's it.
Doesn't matter. Ballet guys need security too, and they need to make sure they're not banging
No, I
cars.
will provide the lighting as is required lighting. I will not come in the side window, that's not the staff.
Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no other speakers, anyone else that'd like to speak and fill out a speaker card? All right, Mr. Martin, would you like to start this one off? Oh my God. Taking a minute.
Sorry. So I'm okay with the project. Couple of those items that I brought up, so that in case if they do come back with these revisions, they don't have to come back to us. Also, another item that I'm okay with if it ends up changing, I don't see a diagonal distance, so to me, the two stairs that are placed on the north side, they may be too close, so if he ends up doing his calculations and going back to the building department, if he ends up shuffling that around, because it's tucked into a section of the existing building, So I'm not sure how that's gonna be used as an exiting and so forth, so it's like, he may actually have to move it towards east, and if it does, it may get closer, so if he does move this around, I'm okay with it, so I'm fine with it. Other than that, I would suggest that staff look at the dimensioning, making sure that everything is fine, so that it doesn't impact the design, once he's done with the final. But other than that, I'm fine.
Okay.
Oh, and, I'm sorry, last thing, what is this?
Oh, that was the other side, the north side, just,
This one? Or this is the
oh,
landscape?
that's the landscaping, correct. There's a photo of the type of plant on the board.
Okay. They have an opening?
They have a railway on the second floor.
No, I have opening on the ground floor where I have the handicap loading.
Sorry. You can't just approach, we're doing, if we have a question, we'll ask you to come.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a
Alright,
question?
Okay, no,
Thank you,
that's
sir.
fine.
You can sit down, thank you. Yeah, it's a little weird, but.
Okay, for a second, I was, never mind. Thought this was west elevation, so that's what I meant.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar with this area, and I've actually attended multiple events at this hall, and I think it's a great idea because I see the valet parking turning around, parking on the street. I mean, even though you guys were parking by the gym, I don't think that was sufficient, so they were still taking the cars around. So I think this is a great idea, and I'm in full support of this. The area needs it, I believe. In terms of design, I'm fine with it. I agree with Mr. Malikan on the couple items that he mentioned in regards to ventilation. I don't think you have the enough space, so you might gonna have some mechanical ventilation. And you need to just talk to a mechanical engineer and have him just calculate that and make sure you have that squared away. But other than that, I think it's a good project and I'm in support.
Okay. Just the other day, we were talking about parking when we had the presentation for the South Glendale plan. And I was an advocate of adding parking, infill parking. This is a project that I would support. But I think that we need to think a little bit more about the use, and I think that the City Council and the Planning Department will handle this piece, but to give our design input to it. I think that you need to look at the gates on this project. There's retail uses, so those gates are going to be up during the day. The only time I think those gates are probably going to go down is maybe midweek after hours. And during the wee hours over weekend nights. I think there's a great opportunity here for the owner to consider, and this is outside the scope of design review, but to consider opening this up to other parking uses during the times that you're not using it. Because I think that if you look at some of the design features here, you can make this maybe more of an automated facility, or have an automated function to this facility, and it could be another profit center for you. Overall design, I mean, it's a parking lot, it's square, it's got issues. I think you've addressed it with some of the detailing. I recently was on the 5th story of the Maryland parking structure. They have planters there. There's not a single plant that's growing in it. They actually have sprinklers. I didn't see sprinklers notated on your plan, landscape plan. I don't really know how you're going to get water up there, but you might want to consider that. And you know,
Fire sprinkler.
Yeah, and fire sprinkler. You're going to need to have you know, a lot of more detail to this than you have now. If you want to do yourself a favor, drive up to the top floor of the Maryland parking structure, and you'll see how unsightly it can be. And I understand that you contemplate that valet is going to be up there, only, but, you know, there could be other uses for that property down the road that would survive the banquet use potentially. And that's a consideration that I think you need to look at. So from a design element, we wouldn't want to make sure that it's not on this side where it's visible. And if it's tucked on the other side, it needs to be also somewhat aesthetically appropriate. The ballard lights, that's not going to fly. You're going to have lighting. Staff, I think, needs to be very much involved in the design of those lights, because you can't have a second floor, like a fourth story of lighting. I mean, there's limitations, right? That you can't go beyond, what is it, 35 feet?
And 16 feet, right? But 16 feet.
The height of the fixtures.
Yeah, with the fixtures. So if you have the fixtures, then you might be hitting a height ceiling, correct? Am I off?
I don't know that the fixtures would count as building height.
Oh, well, if they don't, then they
But
don't.
what our goal would be to minimize the height of the fixtures, definitely get the shielded so that the light's all directed downward. And typically on these things, we try to minimize the size of the lighting heads. With the LED lights, they're getting smaller, and keep them very simple is usually our goal.
I think if I may suggest a location for light poles, maybe along the wall of the ramp that are set in from the perimeter, but yet they can put one, possibly two at the either end and kind of spread around. And all they need is 1 foot per candle at the parking level. So based on that, they'll cover the stair and maybe use the bollard lamps by the steps or the staircase. The rest of them, maybe 2 ends over there, will cover most of the parking space, I think.
And lastly, with the trash area, you know, there's code, but there's also use. And I'm very familiar with the banquet hall. It's an exquisite banquet hall. And the new facade is much better than the old facade. And I got to stare at it while I was doing a project just up the street, and I know I'm familiar with the patterns and so forth. But here, you know, you have space. You have this parking spot that's at a 45-degree or so angle. You have space to increase your trash capacity, so you're not having boxes and bottles and all that other stuff out exposed to your customer base that's expecting a premium facility, because they are going to have access to that downstairs area during the retail hours, as it was indicated. Overall, I'm in support of the project. I would recommend that we look at more projects like this that might, you know, pencil out in other parts of the city. And with that, I would entertain a review of the conditions and then a motion.
Do we want to take off the first condition regarding the size and type of plants? Are we okay with those plants in that?
It's rosemary, I believe. I don't know if, you know,
Yeah,
there's any other plant that would do better. I'm not a landscape architect, so.
Well, they've already sized them, right? 19.5 gallon and 3 foot on center, so.
Yeah.
I have that already.
So they're providing that now, unless.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We want a
it's
different
denoted.
type of plant.
No. Take out number 1.
Take out number 1. So then we still have condition number 2 to provide the rooftop lighting as well as cut sheets of light standards.
And the cut sheets that were provided are not sufficient.
And then do we still want the decorative paving at the driveway entries?
Any other question?
I mean,
It's generally a code standard for, so.
Well, it's a little unusual because it's a parking structure rather than a driveway open to the sky.
yeah, I mean,
It looks like a consideration to me.
I think it's a consideration
Okay.
as well. I mean,
if pedestrians are walking, it might be.
the pedestrian,
But pedestrians
will
are
be going
walking,
in the other way.
if they're walking, maybe
Down
the,
Adams.
you know, I mean, they're gonna pour concrete, maybe they can do some stamped concrete or something there, different types of concrete, rather than do pavers, cut the slab and put pavers in there. Usually pavers are used for open site planning and something like that.
It
You know,
seems,
site that,
so where do you stop? You know, the driveway starts right at the back of the sidewalk.
so you go back a foot or two just so that it covers the roll-up door, so that, I mean, it's, I would just leave it as that, I mean, as it is, so, but.
I agree, I think you leave it as is and make it a condition.
I mean, we're just killing-
If somebody comes back from planning and says it's a requirement,
So
You know.
take that out.
I
So
think
we're
so.
gonna make it a
make it a
consideration.
consideration.
Consider-
And then,
Consider water for the planters and the fire sprinklers.
Condition.
it's a condition, there
Condition.
needs to be, we can't be dependent on.
Pretty much every time we do landscaping, we look for an irrigation plan, so.
Okay, so that would be condition number
One
3.
other item that I've noticed, but again, that's something that, again, if it comes up, you don't need to come back. Literally, there, other than those 2 exits, if you're on the ground level, gates are closed, you have only one exit getting out of that entire ground level. So I'm just, you know, if they end up putting a door, I'm okay with that as well. I don't know where they're gonna put it, but if they end up putting it.
Are you okay with them getting rid of this gate?
What gate?
The roll down gates that they have?
I don't think I'm okay with that. I think it's fine. I mean, I think I don't want it to create a, you know, it's not a public parking space.
It is. The public access, that's my concern, the
Well,
public access.
that's what they're going for. They want to get the permission of not make it a public, use it for their space.
No,
But isn't that the variance in going for the planning for?
No, that's why I'm harping on it, because.
But if it is a public, then it should be
It's
a
not
public
not
standard parking.
It's not a public parking lot, it's
It's for their
definitely
use.
controlled by the owner, and I can
Right.
imagine that when the banquet's over and 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock rolls around, they might wanna secure it. So
Exactly.
neighbors aren't parking in it.
That's the, okay, so let me clarify. By public, I'm talking as it's open to public visitors that are
Clients.
visiting the stores
Correct.
that are there, not just a
Commercial
banquet
uses.
house,
Correct.
banquet use. So if they're going through there, you have to not
Well-
envision this as just a valet lot.
We
a
can
valet structure.
amend the same kind of a condition as it would have for the typical doors for retail sales, like to remain open during business hours or something like that.
Which I guess,
That would, and then after hours, they close it and it'll secure it. So during business hours, you know, during the day, if they need to use it, you know, they just need to keep it open.
okay.
That's fair enough.
So we'll just leave that, and the planning commission wants to add something, it's really not a design issue, so.
I think removing it is gonna be a little bit more problematic, it's just gonna
Okay.
create more security issues.
And then just to, do you have everything else, Kathy? or you want me to-
I have study mechanical ventilation.
Well, I think we should make a condition
That was-
requiring that a mechanical engineer be consulted to verify whether mechanical ventilation is needed.
Right. Yeah, and how that impacts design.
And then increase the trash capacity in the parking structure
Right, consideration.
consideration. And that was all I had.
And then we have, this is more of a design thing, but if there are fire rating issues with the south wall, the board's okay if the railings at the top level go away. I was also kind of concerned about those with headlights just shining over onto the adjacent property.
Yeah.
So there could be reason to just get rid of that.
I think so.
I had another thought, and I hate to interrupt this stated, but what about bike racks? Are they required?
For residential buildings, I don't know. Do you know?
Commercial,
We haven't, I don't think
they're not required for commercial, right? If they are required, I would recommend them south of the trash enclosure.
How many parking spaces are there? 670?
72
Plus the valet
standard plus
overlays.
valet, so 99 total in the
90.
structure, and then 37.
They also have the surface lot to the west.
Okay. So with that,
Technically,
ready?
you're gonna need more ADA parking, but it is what it is.
So, do we actually want those as conditions regarding if they make the changes?
To,
Well, if they need to move things around the board is okay with that. Is
I
that
just,
actually
I
a
just wanna
condition or
make
that's-
sure that
recommendation.
they're okay with some of the building code issues, because I think if you're, I don't know how building is gonna look at this, being that it is a voluntary, or if it's a required number of parking spaces that are providing for the uses. If it is required, then if they're meeting the number of parking spaces that is required, then I'm fairly certain that they need to meet the ADA handicap minimum parking requirement, which is, I believe they need to provide 4 parking spaces. But if they're not providing the minimum required parking spaces for so then they're okay. So if that is the case, again, if they end up utilizing another space, they're okay with cutting an opening in the north elevation and they don't have to come back again. So I'm just kind of making sure, covering them for any changes.
All right, with that, no, that was great. With that, so do we do an approval here, or do we do a recommendation be made to planning commission and city council?
It's a recommendation.
Okay, so I'll entertain a motion for a recommendation or any other motion.
We'll recommend to approve the project with conditions and considerations.
I'll second that.
And that's a motion for us to recommend to planning and to city council that the design board is okay.
And then
Did I
the
get that?
conditions would be incorporated in the PPD, the design
Yes.
would be modified, so.
Okay, I'll take a roll call vote whenever you're ready, Ms. Porter.
Board Member Finlin,
Yes.
Board Member Malikian,
Yes.
and Chair Chartian.
Yes.
Motion carries 0.
Board members, we have, unless there's any other
Thank you.
items for tonight, we have 2 minutes that we
Yes.
need to go through and hopefully approve. We have, first one is for October 13th.
We don't have quorum for
16.
that.
Sorry?
We don't have quorum for that. Mr. Simonian was present with Mr. Billy and I, but Mr. Malikian was not here.
Okay, we've got 3, we have 2.
We have 2.
Okay, so we can't do the 13th, what about the 27th?
So we're okay.
Okay. So I'll take a motion to.
I'll move to approve the project,
Second that.
or approve the minutes.
This will be a roll call, Mr. Malikian,
Yes.
Mr. Benlian?
Yes.
Mr. Charchan?
Yes.
And can I get a motion for adjournment?